Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, it's gonna be a quick update on the V6 MR2, talking about just some of the little things I've done to the car and then some of the next steps. And we're gonna start at the back end of the car. The original trunk that was on it had some notable damage. I was able to source a new trunk and got the wing mounted up already. All that's left to do is the bracing. For the moment, I'm gonna take a bolt-on approach. So essentially, I'm just gonna get one of these plates, cut it to size, and drill some holes. It should be pretty straightforward with the exception of one little thing. The plate will come really close to this point right here, which is where the bracing connects to the outer layer of the trunk. My plan is just to carve out a little notch, and I think that should be sufficient for the moment. Then for this end of the trunk, my plan is to actually just cut some angle and drill some holes so it'll be sandwiched on there. There's actually a surprising amount of room right here, so I'm able to squeeze that little angle in there. Full transparency, I would like to take a slightly different approach with the bracing, but that's gonna require some fabrication skills, which I don't have yet. Although I will definitely be able to start practicing my fab skills soon. And that's because my amazing girlfriend bought me a welder. So this is a titanium brand, so Harbor Freight. It can do MIG and flux. Also, it can do 120 and 240. At the moment, I only have 120 in the shop. I do have this outlet as well, but that's actually for like a recreational vehicle. I know at some point I'll end up having an electrician come out here so I can do 240 as well, but it's just not really a priority. There's some other things I want to get done to the house first. I already went ahead and picked up some wire for flux welding. Based off the stuff that I read online, it's definitely possible to do body work with flux core, but it's definitely not ideal. So I think I'm gonna hold off on trying some of that until I get the gas cylinders and the gas to do MIG welding. But in the meantime, I'm gonna try to find some excuse so I can start practicing my welds. I don't have any welding experience, so this is gonna be a completely new thing for me. Having fabrication skill will definitely come in handy for a lot of the big projects. One of the things that I'll have to do when I put the rear flares on is this is gonna have to get cut and then stitch welded together. Some people end up using seam sealer. I'd prefer not to because I know eventually that would fail, so I'd much rather have it welded. And speaking of the rear flares, I've made the difficult decision to not put them on yet. My plan for the car is in the front, I'm gonna run a 17x10. I already know how to get that to fit, so there's no issues there. In the back of the car, it's gonna be relatively easy. The only thing is, I don't know how much I'm gonna have to cut. Right, the plan is to run an 18x11 with a 285 on there, so that's a pretty meaty aggressive setup. I talked to John, who actually sold me most of like these go fast parts, and he explained to me that his process was kind of backwards. Most people, they'll put the flare on, then cut things out. He took the opposite approach. He actually cut out the back end of the car until he was able to get full range of travel, and then he just put the flare over the top. His car ended up looking really good, but more importantly, it performed really, really well. And this car is gonna be all about functionality. So I decided that it makes more sense just to wait a little bit until I have the wheels, and then I can start cutting away. And in the meantime, I can practice more of my fabrication skills. So I think this is a situation where waiting makes a lot more sense. Now, regarding when I buy the wheel setup for this, it's actually kind of pricey. I'm looking at about $2,500. My hope is that, you know, sometime mid to the end of next year, I can go ahead and pick up those wheels. Coming to the side skirts, I absolutely love the idea. The execution here was just like really, really poor. So if we look here, this is where one hole was and there's another. If we go to the other side of the car, you're gonna see one hole, two hole, three holes. Whoever installed these just did not do a good job. The craftsmanship was not there. So my plan is I'm gonna get rid of the side skirts, fill in the holes, and then I'll revisit this whenever I do the rear flares because I want everything to flow and tie together. Now we're gonna come to the front end of the car, and I gotta tell you, this was probably the hardest one to leave alone. As I removed the front bumper, I realized that, you know, this car had previously been in a crash because the front crash bar was significantly bent. When I went to reassemble the front end, it did not line up well. It took me the better part of a day. And if we come down here, you can actually see where that gap's not very even. I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I just need to walk away. This is a 30-year-old car, but on top of that, it's been wrecked. Like, this is gonna be good enough, especially for like an amateur like myself. Something that probably bothers me more is the lip. I still have to steal the lip from that front bumper and put it on here. The car will eventually get a splitter. I don't think that will end up happening within the next month or two though. And then if we come over to the vented hood, I realized that if I just flip the brackets right here for the radiator, it actually puts it in a more upright position. In order to make the vent as efficient as possible, what I realistically need to do is get that radiator to be more upright and then put some ducting. And in order to do that, all I'll have to do is actually take the lower radiator support and then mount it lower on the car. It's a pretty simple process. For the moment though, I'm gonna leave the car the way it is. And the reason for that is I'm really curious how much of a difference this makes, because this type of, or how the car would be set up right now would be, I guess, very similar similar to like the border hood setup, along with the, they have like relocation kit that you could buy. So I'm curious if just rolling around, I'll notice a difference on this. My intuition tells me no, and I'm gonna have to take it to that next step, but I'm just really curious. Right now, I'm at a point where I feel like I just have to trust the process, because over this next season, with the car only having flares on the front, I do think it's gonna look really, really funny, but there's an end vision and it's gonna slowly get there. So again, I just gotta remind myself that I need to trust the process. It's gonna end up performing really well, but also looking really cool. Realistically, I think the next step on this car is gonna be body work. It's gonna be things like sanding down the trunk, filling in the holes down there, sanding the front down. The one thing I'm really not sure on is when to start the body work, because I kind of had two thoughts. I could sporadically do everything over the next couple months, and then come springtime, that's when I could paint the car. Option number two is that I could just kind of let the car sit for the next 2 months, and then come probably March time, I could start doing the body work and paint the car. Regardless of which option I go with, I'm going to wait till sometime in spring to paint the car, just because right now it's freezing, and the work area I have, even though I'm super blessed to have it, it is not temperature controlled. So if it's freezing outside, it's freezing in here. To be frank, the end result will end up being the same. The only difference is going to be content, because if I do the body work sporadically over a couple of months, it'd probably just be the occasional update, or there's the other option. If I did it all at once, it'd probably be a full video. So I don't know, let me know what you guys want to see. For the moment though, the car's probably just going to sit for the next week or two. There's not really too much to do to it other than just kind of the little things like making the bracket for the trunk and everything like that. More than likely, what I'll end up doing over the next 1 to 2 weeks is this thing needs new wheel studs. Other than that, it's actually pretty good. Oh, and it needs a wash. It's super, super dusty. But I'm probably going to start on this car. The plan is to start by taking out the engine, and then I'm eventually going to tear down the interior, and it's going to be pretty much a full tear down and rebuild. Even though the car's been wrecked, the chassis is still relatively straight, except for this little part right here. There's some rust bubbles, so I'm going to need to take out the window, the interior, and get that cleaned up. My plan is to attempt the rust repair myself. Obviously, that's going to be a little bit of time since I still have to get the gas for MIG welding. That's all I got for this video. Definitely let me know your thoughts and if I should just do sporadic updates, or if you guys would like to see a full video of me attempting to paint the car. I've never painted a car before, so that will be a new experience for me. And then stick around, because we'll start working on the white MR2 really, really soon. Thanks guys, see you in the next one.